today, a little earlier for Getaway Day, so I appreciate your working with us on this today. Again, good morning. Welcome to fiscal year 2015 budget hearing for the Environmental Protection Agency. Today we're joined by Administrator Gina McCarthy and Acting Chief Financial Officer Mary Ann Froelich to discuss the President's proposal for EPA's FY 2015 budget. Ms. McCarthy, I believe this is your first formal budget hearing before the subcommittee. Thank you for being here today. I know our members on both sides are interested in what your budget proposes and look forward to discussing some of your ongoing work. Overall, EPA's fiscal year 2015 budget proposes a level of $7.89 billion, which is $310 million or 3.8% below the enacted level. At this level, EPA's budget would be reduced for the fifth consecutive year following the historic increase in fiscal year 2010. I see this proposed reduction as good for the first step for this year's budget cycle, as it brings the agency's budget in line with more historic funding levels. It also brings the agency's budget in line with the levels under sequestration, but does so in a way that avoids employee furloughs and some of the other consequences associated with indiscriminate across-the-board cuts. I prefer to make targeted and strategic decisions about how we spend our money as we rein in the deficit. With that said, I appreciate the EPA appears to be identifying strategic efficiencies in its workforce, as the agency's payroll costs have been on an unsustainable path. This has been a priority for this subcommittee since 2011. I'm glad to see that we're aligned in this mission. I appreciate that EPA's FY15 budget proposes funding for a workforce of 15,000 employees, reflecting a 2,000 FTE reduction compared to 2011, and a level not seen since the late 1980s. Previous budgets often proposed payroll levels well above the agency's onboard personnel, leaving us to wonder how EPA would actually use those funds. As we move forward, I have concerns about the state of the nation's aging water infrastructure, particularly as it relates to the California drought. Last year, our subcommittee held a hearing to discuss alternate ways of financing our water infrastructure needs. So there's some options out there to help complement the Clean Water and Drinking Water State Revolving Funds. It's important from both the security and from an economic standpoint that we have a protective and efficient water infrastructure system. We often tend to discount the value of clean drinking water whenever we need it. That is until it's not there. I understand that the budget is full of tough choices, but one proposal that I'll let you know is unacceptable, at least to me, is the proposed elimination of the diesel emissions grants, otherwise known as DERA, which support the retrofit of older diesel engines. This is one of the few EPA programs that has been reauthorized in recent years, which is a testament to the bipartisan support for the program. As the DERA program is important as diesel engines power over 95% of commercial trucks. According to EPA's own estimates, every $1 spent on DERA upgrades has resulted in $13 worth of health and environmental benefits. So I don't understand why the administration would propose to eliminate this program with such a high return on investment, particularly when it aligns with the concept of realizing environmental benefits while creating jobs. The budget also eliminates funding for the Rural Water Technical Assistance Grants, for National Water Research Grants, and for state radon grants, which, while more than 21,000 people per year die from radon-related lung cancer. It seems to me that the administration is cutting successful bipartisan programs knowing that Congress will restore the funding. In doing so, this allows the administration to propose other new programs that we just don't have the funding to pay for in a constrained budget environment. These are the wrong priorities to cut. These are successful programs that achieve results without the heavy hand of top-down regulations. Meanwhile, the budget proposes increased funding for the administration's overzealous regulatory and enforcement agenda. The administration's go-it-alone approach is not one that lends itself to building partnerships or developing sensible policies that lead to economic growth. Unfortunately, EPA continues to serve as a primary conduit to carry out that agenda. When the President issues a directive stating that EPA must propose a rule to regulate greenhouse gases from existing power plants by June 1st of 2014, then it's clear that the White House does not care what the rule says or about the impacts to American jobs. When the White House directs you to veto a mining permit before companies even had an opportunity to apply, then it's clear the administration is not serious about creating jobs. And the latest example was revealed on Tuesday, when EPA proposed the greatest expansion of federal control over land and water resources in the 42-year history of the Clean Water Act. Now, every small business and farmer could be subject to EPA fines if they disturb a puddle on their land. Meanwhile, EPA has previously stated that science would support Tuesday's rule. Yet, the Associated Scientific study on connectivity of streams and wetlands to downstream waters has yet to clear the scientific peer review boards. So it's clear that the administration prefers to go it alone, without consideration for the cost of rules, impact on jobs, and without care for the scientific community has to say. Let me be clear. This subcommittee will continue to take whatever actions are necessary to inject some common sense into EPA's rulemaking process and provide certainty to farmers and small business so that they won't have to look over their shoulder fearing the EPA. So while some of the overall trends point to the right direction, the devil is in the details. Administrator McCarthy, I look forward to working with you on those details. I also look forward to keeping the lines of communication open. And with that, I know all members are interested in discussing various issues with you today, so I'll save my additional remarks for the period following your testimony. I'm pleased now to yield to my distinguished ranking member and friend, Mr. Moran.